Hi there and welcome to Startup Central. I'm Nayantara Rai. This is the only show of its kind on Indian television dedicated, of course, to startups, innovation, technology, disruption, entrepreneurship. Basically, if it falls under the gambit of the new economy, it's here every weekday on your favorite channel, ET Now at sharp 6 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, like all the stakeholders that we get on the community, Team Startup Central thrives on constructive criticism. If you don't tell us, who's going to tell us and how we're going to improve, right? We love your emails. Keep writing in. We want to know what we should add to the show, what we should remove from the show, how we should be mixing things up. Our email address, right on top, suc@etnow.tv. Today, we've got a very exciting discussion lined up for all of you. We've seen the kind of prominence influencers have started getting, the rise of the influencers. Now, having said that, there are guidelines that are now being talked about so that users of social media platforms know that any product or any service that an influencer is talking about, is it genuine or is it actually an advertisement? And to be talking about this and more, I'm being joined by our two guests. Between the two of them, I think they must be having a following of 3 lakh on Instagram. So joining me is Sherry Shroff. She's, of course, a digital content creator, as well as Virat Sheth, the co-founder and CEO of Monk Entertainment. Thanks a lot, guys, for being a part of this edition of Startup Central. The guidelines that are being talked about right now is for advertisements on digital media to be honest. It aims to prevent misleading advertisements and that the average consumer should be able to recognize, is this an ad or is this not an ad? Sherry, let me come to you first. From the outside, I must say that the guidelines do seem like they're fair. If you have influencers that are saying, hey, this skincare product really worked for me, or I tried this massage and I got rid of knots, or this oil is so good, my skin has cleared up. Why shouldn't someone know that, hey, it's an ad or not?
I completely agree with you. I have been vocal about having some kind of remedies or guidelines for the last, I think, couple of years. I feel like, when we all started out, like I started out about 10 years ago, we obviously didn't know this would boom into the industry that it is today. So obviously collaborations then were few and far between. So it wasn't what you see exactly today, which is pretty much more sponsored content, less organic content on most creator platforms. So I think it's really important to kind of moderate that. And also for someone in the audience as a consumer, they have the right to know if you are being paid for anything in any form or shape. And I think it's really important. And I'm glad that this is happening finally.
Raj, if I can come to you now, where do you stand on this issue?
So thanks for having me on the show, first of all. I personally feel like regulation is in any industry a good and a welcome move. And this is more sort of a self-regulatory body that's not directly governed by the government. So I believe like this is one step forward towards organizing the ever-growing, surging influencer ecosystem a lot more. So in that consideration, this is definitely a welcome move. I feel a lot of the guidelines, though, are fairly valid and they're very fair. Even the folks at ASCI, when they were drafting these guidelines, they were kind enough to reach out to a lot of the stakeholders of the ecosystem. They took our opinions into consideration and drafted a lot of these guidelines. And I feel like they've been fairly collaborative in drafting those. And it's going to be it's just going to make this ecosystem a lot more transparent for all stakeholders, the content creators, the brands, the advertisers, and the audiences more so than anything else.
Fair point. So you both seem to be on the same page as far as this goes. Sherry, if I could come to you now. We, for example, have seen in the print media how advertisements have to be pointed out, and they usually have the word advertorial, for example, in magazines. According to you, what would be the best way for users to know that, yes, this is an advertisement or this is a paid promotion? What would be the best way to do it?
So I think most platforms already have the best way. So Instagram has the paid partnership tag, which you can use on your posts, which comes at the top of a post. So it's very clear for someone seeing that post, knowing that you're being paid for it. Similarly, on YouTube, you have the option to tick a box when you upload a video if there's sponsored content in it, and there will be a disclaimer that appears on the video, clearly telling the viewer that there is some sponsored content as part of this video. So I think the platforms are already doing their job, and I think now it's time for the creators and the brands to do their jobs. My issue with the guidelines is that they're not legally enforceable. I really wish that they were, because I feel like this is something I've been doing for the last couple of years, as I said, anyways. But there is always a struggle with a lot of brands not wanting to declare that jobs are paid, and I've very often lost the job because of that. And there's a lot of gray area still that needs to be covered, and I feel like that gray area or those loopholes, people will still manipulate that somewhere. And as I said, the guidelines, as Viraj rightly pointed out earlier, said it's a self-regulatory body, and it's something that focuses on self-regulation more than it does on actually a legal remedy. So I'm hoping that in the future that changes as well, because that'll make sure that every creator and every brand is more transparent, and that should be the case as it is in a lot of other countries already.
Viraj, if I can come to you now, you heard about a couple of platforms that already encourage this, whether, it's an Instagram or YouTube, all of that. But what we've also seen in the last couple of months, and especially after the void that was being created by TikTok, is the proliferation of the short video formats. In fact, if you look at the number of downloads, the most number of downloads on the Play Store, on the Google Play Store, it's completely hogged by the short video format ones, right? Whether it's a Moj, or it's a Josh, or it's a ShareChat, all of that. And that's, I understand, a very different audience, but a very big audience, a mass audience. And there, you're definitely not seeing anything about paid partnerships.
I agree. And so I feel those are actually the first platforms that need to adopt this, because they're being viewed by audiences which are very fairly more impressionable. And a lot of the downloads, I believe, are coming in from not the non-metro cities, the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and a lot of these viewers are not very well versed with the kind of content being thrown at them. They probably will not be able to decipher whether or not the content piece that is being showcased to them is an ad or not. As opposed to something like, something on a Snapchat or an Instagram or a Twitter, it's being used by more urban audiences, and even with YouTube. So far, all these people have now been able to decipher that, hey, if there is a product and there's a link that's being, embedded with it, it is definitely, an advertisement that's paid for. But yes, I feel like, platforms like Takatak, Moj, and the likes of those need to follow suit and, adapt to these sort of tools that help creators establish that this certain content piece was a paid one.
Sherry, I want to ask you about another one, which is got a blurred line, which is, yes, sometimes influencers are paid to put up posts, right? I get that. But very often, influencers also get to enjoy products for free. They're not paid, but they sent those products, or they're sent for vacations, or they're sent to a spa. Shouldn't that also be covered in the ASCII guidelines?
So
because they may not have been paid,
something that we
but they may not have put up the post or come across it if they hadn't got it.
Right. So that's exactly what I raised with ASCII when we had the focus group with them, said that there are many of these gray areas that we need to cover. And I think one of the solutions was that we have different hashtags for different things. So internationally, there are hashtags like supplied, or, even in case of a experiential, there's an option to say that this is an ad if you're going on a holiday with a resort, for example, and there are deliverables. The biggest distinction with gifts and a job is whether they're deliverables or no deliverables. At least for me, that's how I see it as a creator. So if someone sends me just a gift, and I create content with no input from the brand, or they don't even know that this is being created, of course, then that's at my own discretion. But I still could use a hashtag like gifted to tell my audience that at least the product was gifted to me and was not paid for by me. The other option is where, as you said, you get sent on trips, experientials. Those also need to be clear that this is an ad for the resort, for the airline, for whoever, or the spa that you're visiting. It may not necessarily be a paid partnership per se, like in cash, but there is some element of a barter, then that needs to be declared as well. So we did discuss these things, and we did say that they need to be handled differently, because as creators, obviously you get a zillion gifts every day, and sometimes you don't even know, right? Like a brand sends you a box of lipsticks. I may create a piece of content 3 years later or 2 years later with that lipstick. I won't even remember whether I bought it, whether it was sent to me or whatever, because the scale of gifting is PR gifting today is so crazy. So that's why we clearly said that I think these demarcations need to happen. So when you put out a post, like when I'm thanking a brand for a gift, I need to use the hashtag gifted to know, for people to know that this is, been gifted to me. Or if I create a piece of content organically about something that I loved, but the product is high end and was gifted to me, that should also be transparent to the viewer. So yeah, we have raised these concerns, and hopefully I feel with the actual final draft, there will be distinctions between these as well.
Viraj, you want to come in on this? The minute you have to even talk about, getting a free stay or a free product, it could be a blow dryer, it could be lipsticks, it could be clothes, shoes, whatever it is. Do you think that should be made explicitly clear?
So again, there's a gray area to this, like Sherry rightly mentioned, right? That a lot of the times brands are just gifting, and that comes with no strings attached, right? Like they don't ask you that, hey, there is no expectation of you to do a swipe up story on Instagram or a post or anything of that sort. They're just doing it as a gesture for the influencer to probably take notice of the brand. A lot of the times, in fact, because we have friends in the media industry and in the digital creator industry, they launch their own products many times, and they end up sending these goodies to the creators as well. I mean, how do we make distinction of that? Because that, in the very essence of it, is purely a gift. It's not paid for. It's coming from the heart. It's not a transaction. So how do we, sort of distinguish those? And I think Sherry gave a very valid alternative to that maybe we use separate hashtags for it so that it's clear. Because at the end of the day, a third party may not have the intricate details of what the association was, right? Like they don't know if a friend has sent it to me or not. I've still ended up receiving it and I put it on my social media. So I just need to, if the creator makes it clear to their audiences.
Okay. Sherry, my producer Divya wants me to get to ask you this question, which is that if all of this does come through, whether it's a paid partnerships, whether it's a thank you emoticon, all of that stuff, and you've been very vociferous and you've taken a stand on this entire issue, others may not. Do you think it could impact following? Someone will be like, hey, everything to free mein mila, kuch kaam bhi nahi kiya, sab kuch paid. Can it impact following?
In my case, honestly, I've been lucky not to get that kind of feedback, because I've been very conscious about the brand collabs that I do and the ratio of the brand collabs that I do. So if you see, it will always be 90% organic, 10% like branded or sponsored content across my platforms. So my audience actually, acknowledges that sponsored content really well. They always receive it well. They always say it's cool that you make money, and we're happy that you make money, because I don't do it on a daily basis. So I think that will, of course, affect the space where there are a lot of people that are doing sponsored content every day without declaring it. So they might struggle, because you can't, obviously, you don't want your audience to see that you're getting paid every day for something, or especially if you're trying to organically plug something and it looks paid, then you have a problem there. So I think I don't think it'll affect following, but I think people will be more responsible with the amount of sponsored content that they put out. And also, as the guidelines state, right, like the onus is on the creator to actually even check the claims of a brand when you're saying something like, for example, if I were to talk about a toothpaste and say this is 10 times more whitening than another toothpaste, the current draft says that I would actually need to communicate with the brand and ask them on what basis they're making this claim and get that data from them. And so I feel like it'll make the industry more responsible, because obviously as a creator, you need to do your homework as well before collaborating with brands and not just, posting what they tell you to do. So I feel like if everybody does follow through and if everything changes, there will be changes for the better only, and the industry will be more transparent, more responsible, and we will kind of see the focus again on more organic content than sponsored content through, I think, creators as well.
Problem also is now when everybody doesn't follow through, what happens then? And Viraj, let me give you that question, because you're vociferously speaking for self-regulation. You're an advocate for self-regulation. Now, what happens if you've got a couple of big digital content creators with like massive following and say, "Hum to nahi karenge, we're not doing it"? Then what?
So honestly, I don't think that's going to happen, because creators know this is done. This move
every
is done
influencer in this country.
Sorry.
You're willing to vouch for every influencer in India? That's a really big thing to say.
I wouldn't say every influencer. I'm talking about like you mentioned, the top guys, right? At least, so the kind of guys we represent, say like a Beer Biceps, a Bunic, a Binute, the likes of those, right? I know that they're very okay with, like, once they got to read the guidelines as well, they were very okay with the sort of guidelines that have been formed, because they're very friendly. They're not forcing you, or they're not mandating you to do certain things which a creator would normally want to not do. A lot of these creators had already, like Sherry rightly said, a lot of creators have already been disclosing their partnerships with the brands, and it's not creating that big of a difference, right? Because these audiences are super smart. So the moment you put in a product, and you doesn't matter how organically it fits into your content, right? The moment you put in one brand and you tag them, you obviously know that the creator is not going to be stupid enough to do this on a free of cost basis, unless it's a brand that they own, or it's a friend or whatever, right? So disclosing the brand name or disclosing the nature of the partnership isn't going to change that much of it's not going to change the whole dynamic between the brand and the creator, or the brand and the audience. Although what will happen though is the fact that, because now you very upfront know that this is a paid partnership, the engagement on those posts might decrease a little bit. And that's where the platforms sort of have a great play, because then they start pushing their paid partnership tools or their paid marketing tools, where they say, okay, your post isn't getting enough reach, so why don't you use our tools to make it reach more people? So I think the platforms stand to gain out of this in a way. But I feel like, again, like self-regulation is very important. Most of the top creators are not going to back off from something like this.
Okay. So the guidelines are expected by 31st of March. Let's wait for that. And Sherry and Viraj, here's an open invitation to be back on Startup Central to talk about this once the guidelines have indeed been finalized. We look forward to that conversation as well. Many thanks for joining us today live on the show.
Looking forward to that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
See you.